25. George Washington's genocidal tendency. The United States is responsible for a lot of good things, but it's also responsible for a lot of bad things. I'm Mike with List 25, and from Agent Orange to Project MK Ultra, here are 25 shocking moments of U.S. history you might not know about. George Washington's genocidal tendencies. Just to give you an idea, Washington's nickname in the Iroquois language roughly translates to town destroyer or devourer of villages. 24. White flight, 20th century. Contrary to Europe, in the US, most wealthy residents live in suburbs while the more urban neighborhoods are poor and run down. This is a result of wealthy white citizens moving out of racially mixed urban neighborhoods and into all-white suburban neighborhoods during the 50s and 60s. This trend is reversing now, but it's led to talk of gentrification. 23. Agent Orange. This herbicide was used by the U.S. military during the Vietnam War to get rid of foliage in order to better spot the Viet Cong. Although the U.S. government refused to acknowledge it for quite some time, Agent Orange continues to have devastating effects on both the Vietnamese and the veterans who fought in the war. 22. San Francisco's early history. It started out during the gold rush and was mostly populated by thieves, pirates, and prostitutes. The U.S. Army nearly invaded once, and the city was burned to the ground by pirates several times. It was a lawless place. 21. Extraordinary rendition. Also known as torture by proxy, this is when the U.S. government extradites a prisoner to a third world country where torture is legal. 20. Bonus Army March, 1932. Thousands of World War I veterans marched on Washington, D.C. demanding to be paid what the government had promised. Instead of paying them, the government sent in the military to disperse the marchers. Several died and thousands more were injured. 19. Lynchings. American history is replete with extrajudicial killings. It makes it even worse when you consider that people would bring their lunches to public lynchings and sit around laughing as someone was executed. 18. The Battle of Athens, 1946. Soldiers returning from World War II took up arms against corrupt politicians in Athens, Tennessee. 17. Japanese internment camps. On the orders of President Roosevelt, nearly 120,000 Japanese were rounded up and thrown into internment/concentration camps after the attack on Pearl Harbor. More than half of these prisoners were United States citizens who had never done anything wrong. 16. Christopher Columbus. He is possibly the most celebrated genocidal maniac in history. 15. Tulsa race riots, 1921. The Greenwood District, the wealthiest black community in the U.S., was burned to the ground by white rioters. The community had even earned the nickname the Black Wall Street. For decades, this riot wasn't even talked about in schools. 14. The California Indian Genocide, 1846 and 1870. When the government of California issued a statement that it would pay any citizen that helped it eliminate the, quote, Indian problem in the state, the native population dropped from around 150,000 to 30,000. 13. Jim Crow laws. Much of the racial trouble in the U.S. today can be traced back to Jim Crow laws. These laws promoted segregation and essentially created a very visible black-white divide in the U.S. Although the laws have been repealed, the effect is still very widely felt. 12. Project MK Ultra. The CIA illegally experimented on human subjects in an attempt to find drugs and torture techniques that would help force confessions. 11. COINTELPRO. The FBI tried to monitor, blackmail, and even murder prominent civil rights activists. 10. Invasion of Puerto Rico. By now, you can probably imagine what happened. American business saw an opportunity, and the American military happened to provide them with that opportunity. The massacres and killings that followed were terrible. Massacre of Ponce, Massacre of Rio Piedras, etc. 9. Support of militant Islam. For years, the United States funded rebel Islamist groups in an attempt to fight communism by proxy. In fact, many of the terror groups and dictatorships, Saddam Hussein, Al-Qaeda, etc., were almost directly created, funded, and supported by the United States during the Cold War. 8. The Labor Rights Movement. It was an extremely bloody period in American history. The amount of blood that was shed in order to have an 8-hour workday is almost unreal. 7. The Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment, 1932 to 1972. African American men were told they would get free treatment. Instead, scientists left them untreated so they could study how syphilis progressed. 6. Klan membership in the early 1900s. It was actually quite a popular thing to be a Klan member. The Texas State Fair even had a Klan Day. 5. TP Ajax Project. This was the code name for the 1953 Iranian coup d'etat, where the United States helped the United Kingdom overthrow the Iranian government and replace it with one that favored the West. Why? Because the Iranian parliament was trying to nationalize its oil fields and kick out the British. This has, unsurprisingly, created lasting anti-US sentiment in the region. 4. Eugenics. Hitler's ideas about selective breeding, sterilization, and master races were actually inspired by the United States. 3. The annexation of Hawaii. Because apparently the threat of force is different from the actual application of force. 2. Operation PV Success. This was the CIA operation that installed a US-backed dictatorship in Guatemala. Why? Because the Guatemalan government had refused to continue paying the United Fruit Company its extortionate prices. As with the Iranian Revolution, this has created lasting anti-US sentiment in Latin America. 1. Ludlow Massacre. Striking coal miners were massacred by the Colorado National Guard on the orders of their boss, Rockefeller. Imagine if your boss could call in the army to murder both you and your family because you refused to work for slave wages. Enjoying our lists? Be sure to click that subscribe button in the top right corner so you don't miss out on new ones every Monday through Friday. Share them with your friends and help us consistently conciliate curiosity.